I think I didn't do anything wrong, just let my friend be part of a special moment. Now, I'm staring at divorce papers while everyone acts like I'm the villain, just because my husband decided to get the law involved after I joked our baby looked like his friend. The envelope from his lawyer was the first thing I saw this morning. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The sterile smell of the maternity ward still clings to my memory as I write this. 6 months ago, I thought I was living my perfect life. My name is Mirelle Vane, I'm 32, and I work as a project coordinator at a marketing firm downtown. Everything seemed so simple then. I had just given birth to our daughter Amelia after 14 grueling hours of labor. The pain was excruciating, but I felt triumphant. I immediately called my college friend Elliot Hart to share the good news. We'd reconnected a few months earlier through social media, and he'd been incredibly supportive throughout my pregnancy. "Elliot, she's here," I whispered into the phone, still exhausted but glowing with joy. "Mirelle, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you. Can I come see her?" His voice was warm, excited. "Of course. Daniel's still stuck at the engineering firm dealing with some crisis, so you might even get here first." When Elliot arrived with a massive bouquet of pink roses and a teddy bear bigger than the baby, I felt so loved and supported. He looked exactly like I remembered from college. Tall, athletic build, those piercing blue eyes that always made me feel special. "She's absolutely beautiful, Mirelle," he said, leaning over the hospital bassinet. "She has your nose, but those eyes, they're so distinctive." I beamed with pride. "Want to hold her?" "Really? Are you sure?" "Of course. You've been such an amazing friend through all of this." I carefully placed Amelia in his arms, and he held her like she was made of glass. The way he looked at her with such tenderness and wonder made my heart swell. This was what friendship looked like. Someone who genuinely cared about the important moments in your life. That's when Daniel walked in. My husband stood in the doorway, still in his work clothes, holding a small arrangement of flowers from the hospital gift shop. His face went through several expressions: confusion, hurt, and something else I couldn't quite identify. "Oh, hey Daniel," Elliot said casually, not moving to hand over the baby. "Congratulations, man. She's perfect." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Thanks. Can I hold my daughter now?" The tension in his voice was unmistakable, but I thought he was just being dramatic. "Daniel, don't be rude. Elliot drove all the way here to meet Amelia." "I'm not being rude, Mirelle. I just spent the last 3 hours rushing to get here after my wife gave birth, and I find another man holding my newborn daughter." Elliot finally handed Amelia over, but the damage was done. Daniel's hand shook slightly as he took her, and I could see the hurt in his eyes. "You're being ridiculous," I said. "Elliot is my friend. He's been nothing but supportive." "Supportive how, exactly?" Daniel's voice was quiet, controlled. "He's listened to me complain about morning sickness, helped me pick out nursery colors, drove me to appointments when you were working late." "I was working late to pay for this hospital, Mirelle, to provide for our family." Elliot cleared his throat. "Maybe I should go. This seems like a family moment." "No, stay," I insisted, shooting Daniel a warning look. "You're practically family too." The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel held Amelia close, his engineer's mind probably calculating and analyzing everything he'd just witnessed. He was always like that, methodical, careful, thinking 3 steps ahead. After Elliot left, promising to visit again soon, Daniel barely spoke to me. When the nurses came to check on us, he was polite but distant. When his mother Linda called, he stepped into the hallway to talk. "What's wrong with you?" I demanded when he returned. "Nothing's wrong with me, Mirelle. I'm just trying to understand why my wife's college boyfriend was the first person to hold our daughter." "He's not my boyfriend, Daniel. We're friends, just friends." Friends don't usually get priority over husbands. You weren't here because I was working to support us. The argument continued in hushed tones, mindful of the other patients. But I could see something had shifted in Daniel's eyes. A wall was going up, and I didn't understand why he couldn't just be happy that I had good friends who cared about me. When we got home 3 days later, Daniel was cordial but cold. He helped with the baby, changed diapers, did night feedings, but he felt like a stranger living in our apartment. Every time I mentioned Elliot's name, his face would harden. "He sent the cutest onesie," I said one evening, showing Daniel the package that had arrived. "Great," Daniel replied flatly, not looking up from his laptop. "You know what your problem is? You're jealous." "Jealous of what, exactly?" "That I have friends who care about me, that someone else can make me happy." Daniel closed his laptop and looked at me directly. "Mirelle, I've never had a problem with your friends, but this isn't normal friendship behavior." "What's not normal about it?" "Everything. The constant texting, the way he looks at you, the way you light up when he's around. And now he's inserting himself into our family moments. You're being paranoid and controlling." "Am I? Or am I being a husband who's watching his wife prioritize another man?" I turned away from him, frustrated. Why couldn't he see that Elliot was just being a good friend? Why did everything have to be about jealousy and possession? That night, Daniel slept in the guest room for the first time in our 5-year marriage. The next few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and growing tension. Daniel went through the motions of being a father and husband, but the warmth was gone. He'd hold Amelia, feed her, change her diapers, but he barely looked at me unless necessary. I decided to take control of the narrative. If Daniel was going to sulk, I'd show everyone how unreasonable he was being. I posted on Facebook, "Some people think having supportive friends is a bad thing. Grateful for the people who actually show up when it matters." As a single mom vibes, how true friends. The responses were immediate and validating. "Girl, you deserve better." "Men can be so insecure." "Elliot sounds like a keeper. As a friend, obviously." My mother Janice called within an hour. "Honey, what's going on with you and Daniel?" "He's being ridiculous, Mom. He's jealous of Elliot for no reason." "Well, men can be territorial about their families." "Territorial? This is 2024, not 1950. I'm allowed to have male friends." "Of course you are, sweetheart. Maybe Daniel just needs time to adjust." But Daniel's mother Linda had a very different reaction when she came to visit. I could tell Daniel had filled her in on his version of events because she was cold from the moment she walked in. "Where's my granddaughter?" she asked, barely acknowledging me. "She's napping. Daniel's in the nursery." Linda walked past me without another word. I could hear them talking in low voices, and I caught fragments. "Not appropriate. Boundaries. Protect your family." When they emerged, Linda's face was set in stone. "Mirelle, I think we need to talk." "About what?" "About respect, about marriage, about what's appropriate when you have a family." "I haven't done anything inappropriate." "Haven't you? You let another man hold your daughter before your husband. You're posting cryptic messages on social media instead of working on your marriage. You're acting like a teenager, not a wife and mother." My face burned with anger and embarrassment. "I don't have to listen to this." "Yes, you do, because that's my son in there, and that's my granddaughter, and I won't watch you destroy this family because you want attention from your college boyfriend." "He's not my boyfriend." "Then start acting like it." After Linda left, Daniel was even more distant. His younger sibling Robin, who was only 10 but wise beyond their years, seemed to pick up on the tension during their weekly video call. "Why does Mummy seem sad?" I heard them ask Daniel. "Grown-up stuff, kiddo. Nothing for you to worry about." "Are you and Mirelle fighting?" "We're working through some things." Even a 10-year-old could see our marriage was falling apart. I tried to reach out to our mutual friends for support. Anna and Zoe, who I'd known since college, were sympathetic at first. Daniel's probably just overwhelmed with the new baby, Anna said over coffee. Men handle change differently. But he's making me feel like I can't have friends. Well, Zoe hesitated. You and Elliot do seem pretty close. We're friends. Why is everyone acting like that's a crime? It's not a crime, Mir. But maybe you could dial it back a little. For Daniel's peace of mind. I was shocked. Even my closest friends were taking his side. That evening, I found Daniel packing a small suitcase. Where are you going? To stay with Robin and my parents for a few days. I need some space to think. You're abandoning us. I'm taking a break from watching my wife prioritize another man over her family. That's not what I'm doing. Isn't it? When's the last time you asked how I'm feeling? When's the last time you showed me half the attention you show Elliot? I couldn't answer because I couldn't remember. I'm not the villain here, Mirelle. I'm just a husband who wants his wife to act like she's married. He left that night, and I posted another Facebook update. When you need space from your newborn and wife because you can't handle your own insecurities. Some people really show their true colors under pressure. But this time, the comments weren't as supportive. Some people started questioning my side of the story, asking what had really happened. A few mutual friends even defended Daniel, saying he was a good man who wouldn't leave without reason. The narrative was slipping away from me, and I didn't know how to get it back. Daniel stayed away for a week. During that time, Elliot was incredibly supportive, bringing groceries, helping with Amelia, and listening to me vent about my unreasonable husband. He's just insecure, Elliot said, bouncing Amelia gently while I made coffee. Some guys can't handle their wives having male friends. It's so frustrating. You've been nothing but helpful. I care about you, Mirelle. I always have. If Daniel can't see that you deserve support, that's his problem. The way he looked at me when he said it made my heart flutter in a way I hadn't felt since college, but I pushed the thought away. We were just friends. When Daniel finally came home, he seemed different, more resolved, less emotional. We need to set some boundaries, he said calmly. What kind of boundaries? Elliot can't come over anymore. Not when I'm not here, and honestly, I'd prefer if he didn't come over at all. That's ridiculous, he's my friend. Then meet him in public places, but I won't have him in our home, around our daughter, when I'm not here. You don't get to dictate my friendships, Daniel. I'm not dictating anything. I'm asking for basic respect as your husband. But I was tired of his demands, tired of walking on eggshells. The next day, while Daniel was at work, I invited Elliot over anyway. Are you sure about this? He asked when I let him in. It's my house too. I'm not going to be controlled. We spent the afternoon together, playing with Amelia, watching movies, talking about old times. It felt natural, comfortable. When Daniel came home and found Elliot's car in our driveway, his face went white. I thought we had an agreement. We had your ultimatum. I don't remember agreeing to anything. Elliot looked uncomfortable. Maybe I should go. No, I said firmly. Stay. We're not doing anything wrong. Daniel's hands clenched into fists at his sides, but his voice remained steady. Elliot, I'm asking you, man to man, to respect my marriage and leave my house. Mirelle invited me, and I'm uninviting you. The testosterone in the room was thick enough to cut. Finally, Elliot gathered his things and left, but not before giving me a long hug goodbye, right in front of Daniel. This isn't over, I told Daniel after Elliot left. No, it's not, he agreed, but something in his tone made me nervous. That night, I posted photos from our afternoon, Elliot holding Amelia, the three of us looking like a happy family. The caption read, "Grateful for friends who show up consistently, unlike some people. Want real friends, want your support, want you not ashamed." The post got mixed reactions. Some friends supported me, but others started openly questioning my judgment. Mike, one of Daniel's college buddies, commented, This is messed up, Mirelle. Daniel's a good guy. Why are you doing this to him? I deleted his comment and blocked him. Over the next few days, I noticed Daniel was documenting things, taking photos of Elliot's car in our driveway, screenshots of my social media posts, keeping a calendar of Elliot's visits. When I confronted him about it, he just shrugged. I'm protecting myself. From what? From whatever this situation is becoming. I found a business card on his dresser, a family law attorney. When I Googled the name, my stomach dropped. This wasn't some general practice lawyer. This was someone who specialized in divorce and custody cases. Are you planning to divorce me? I asked that evening. I'm planning to protect my interests and my daughter's interests. She's our daughter. Is she? The question hung in the air like a bomb. I stared at him, shocked that he would even suggest such a thing. How dare you? How dare I what? Question why my wife is posting photos that make it look like she's playing house with another man and his baby. You're sick, Daniel. Paranoid and sick. But even as I said it, I realized how the photos might look to someone on the outside. Elliot and I did look comfortable together, natural, and Amelia did seem content in his arms. Maybe I am paranoid, Daniel said quietly, but I'm not stupid, and I'm not going to keep pretending this is normal. That night, he slept in the guest room again, and this time, I had the sinking feeling he wasn't coming back to our bed. The breaking point came during what should have been a celebration. Daniel's parents were visiting for Amelia's 6-month milestone, and I had invited a few friends over for dinner. Against Daniel's wishes, I had also invited Elliot. Please don't do this, Daniel had begged me earlier that day. Not in front of my parents. Do what? Have friends over? You know exactly what you're doing, Mirelle. But I was tired of his paranoia, tired of walking on eggshells. Elliot was my friend, and I wasn't going to hide that anymore. The dinner started awkwardly, with Linda barely acknowledging Elliot's presence and Daniel maintaining polite but cold conversation. Our friends Anna and Zoe seemed uncomfortable, while Mike, who I'd reluctantly uninvited after his Facebook comment, but who came as Daniel's guest, watched everything with obvious disapproval. Elliot, to his credit, tried to keep things light. He brought expensive wine and a beautiful photo album for Amelia's baby pictures. He complimented Linda's cooking and asked Daniel about his engineering projects, but the tension was suffocating. Then Amelia started fussing, and Elliot immediately stood up. Want me to get her? He asked, already moving toward the high chair. Sure, I said, not thinking. Daniel's fork clattered against his plate. I'll get my daughter. Elliot's closer, I said dismissively. The silence that followed was deafening. Linda's face was stone, Anna and Zoe exchanged worried glances, and Mike shook his head in obvious disgust. Elliot picked up Amelia and started bouncing her gently. She immediately stopped crying and smiled up at him, gurgling happily. She loves her Uncle Elliot, I said, trying to lighten the mood. Look at that smile, Elliot said, grinning. She definitely knows who her favorite is. That's when I made the comment that changed everything. Well, look at those eyes, I said, laughing. She could practically be your mini-me, Elliot. Maybe Daniel should be worried. I meant it as a joke, a way to break the tension. But the words hit the room like a physical blow. Daniel stood up so abruptly, his chair fell backward. His face had gone completely white, then red, then white again. What did you just say? It was just a joke, Daniel. Relax. Repeat what you just said. I said she could be Elliot's mini-me. It was a joke about how much she likes him. Linda gasped audibly. Anna covered her mouth with her hand. Mike was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. You think it's funny, Daniel said slowly, to joke that our daughter might not be mine. Oh my God, Daniel, it was just a comment about her eyes. You're being ridiculous. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you just suggested, in front of our friends and family, that you've been having an affair with Elliot and that Amelia might be his child. The room was dead silent. Elliot had gone pale, and was holding Amelia like she might explode. "That's not what I said. That's exactly what you said, and you said it like it was funny." Linda stood up, her hands shaking. "Daniel, take the baby." Elliot quickly handed Amelia over, avoiding eye contact with everyone. "I think I should go," he mumbled. "Yeah," Mike said coldly. "I think you should." After Elliot left, the dinner party dissolved into chaos. Linda was crying, Anna and Zoe were trying to mediate, and Mike was openly supporting Daniel. "This is insane," Mike said. "Mirelle, what the hell is wrong with you?" "Nothing is wrong with me. You're all overreacting to a stupid joke." "That wasn't a joke," Anna said quietly. I don't even know what that was." "It was cruel," Linda said through her tears. "Cruel and inappropriate and completely unacceptable." Daniel hadn't said another word. He was holding Amelia close, staring at her face with an expression I'd never seen before, like he was seeing her for the first time. Everyone left within the hour, and Daniel and I were alone with our daughter and the wreckage of our marriage. "I want a paternity test," he said quietly. "Daniel, no. It was just a stupid joke." "It wasn't a joke, Mirelle. It was the truth slipping out. And I want to know if Amelia is my daughter." "Of course she's your daughter." "Then you won't mind the test." I stared at him, seeing a stranger. The gentle, trusting man I'd married was gone, replaced by someone cold and calculating. "If you do this, Daniel, there's no going back. You're destroying our marriage over nothing." "I'm not destroying anything, Mirelle. I'm just finding out what's already been destroyed." 3 days later, a legal envelope arrived by courier. Daniel had filed for divorce and court-ordered paternity testing. I was finally getting the attention I'd been craving, but not the kind I wanted. Daniel's lawyer was a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in high-conflict divorces. When I met her during our first mediation session, I immediately knew I was outmatched. "Mrs. Vane," she said, spreading documents across the conference table. "My client has documented a pattern of emotional infidelity and deliberate humiliation. We have social media posts, witness statements, and photographic evidence of inappropriate behavior." My own lawyer, a kind but overwhelmed public defender named Tom Walsh, shuffled through his notes nervously. "What exactly are you alleging?" I asked. Patricia smiled coldly. "Emotional affair, public humiliation of spouse, potential adultery, and questions regarding paternity of the minor child." "I never had an affair." "Didn't you? Let's review the evidence." She pulled out printed screenshots of my Facebook posts, text message logs between Elliot and me that Daniel had somehow obtained, and photos of Elliot at our apartment on days when Daniel was at work. "These text messages show a level of intimacy inappropriate for a married woman," Patricia continued. Quote, "I wish you were here to hold me." Quote, "Daniel doesn't understand me like you do." Quote, "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed together after college." My face burned. Those messages looked terrible out of context. I was emotional. Postpartum hormones. "And this photo, taken in your home, shows Mr. Hart holding your daughter while you're in what appears to be a nightgown. It was a robe, and I was breastfeeding. In front of a man who isn't your husband." Tom finally spoke up. "This seems circumstantial." Patricia smiled. "Perhaps, but we also have witness statements from the dinner party where Mrs. Vane publicly joked that the child might belong to Mr. Hart. That, combined with the pattern of behavior, raises legitimate questions about paternity." The paternity test had been ordered by the court, and we were waiting for results. In the meantime, Daniel had moved out completely and was staying with his parents. I was allowed supervised visitation with Amelia, but only in the presence of a court-appointed monitor. The humiliation was crushing. Everyone in our social circle knew about the divorce proceedings. Some friends tried to stay neutral, but most had clearly chosen sides. Anna and Zoe met me for coffee one afternoon, and their discomfort was obvious. "Mirelle, Anna said carefully. We want to support you, but what? But we were there that night. We heard what you said. It was a joke. Was it? Zoe asked. Because looking back, there were signs. The way you talked about Elliot, the way you lit up around him, the constant texting. I can't believe you're turning on me, too. We're not turning on you, Anna said. We're just confused. Why would you joke about something like that if there wasn't some truth to it? I left the coffee shop in tears, feeling completely alone. My mother Janice was still supportive, but even she was starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Honey, maybe you should have been more careful about appearances. Since when do I have to worry about appearances with my friends? Since you got married and had a baby. Mirelle, I raised you to be smarter than this. Smarter than what? Having friends? Smarter than letting another man become more important than your husband. Even my own mother was questioning my choices. The worst part was Elliot's reaction. After the dinner party disaster, he'd become increasingly distant. His texts were short and formal, and he'd stopped coming around entirely. I think we need to cool things off for a while, he said when I called him crying. Cool things off? We're friends. Are we? Because this whole situation has gotten really complicated, and I don't want to make things worse for you. You're abandoning me too. I'm protecting both of us. This legal stuff is serious, Mirelle. I can't get dragged into a custody battle. So much for standing by me when things got tough. The paternity results were scheduled to arrive the following week. Daniel's lawyer had made it clear that if he wasn't Amelia's father, he would seek full custody termination and pursue me for fraud and emotional damages. I spent sleepless nights staring at Amelia, trying to convince myself that she looked like Daniel. But the truth was, I wasn't entirely sure. The timeline was close, and there had been that one night with Elliot a few weeks before I found out I was pregnant. No, I couldn't think about that. Amelia was Daniel's daughter. She had to be. But deep down, I was starting to realize that even if she was, I had destroyed my marriage anyway. My need for attention, my refusal to set boundaries, my public humiliation of the man who had loved and supported me for 5 years, it had all led to this moment. I was about to lose everything, and for the first time, I was starting to understand that maybe I deserved to. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning. Patricia Chen called a meeting for that afternoon, and I sat in her conference room with Tom, Daniel, and a stenographer, waiting for the results that would determine the rest of my life. The paternity test results are conclusive, Patricia announced, opening the sealed document. Daniel Vane is not the biological father of Amelia Vane. The words hit me like a physical blow. Daniel closed his eyes and took a deep breath, while I felt the world spinning around me. No, I whispered, that can't be right. The probability of paternity is 0.00%. There is no possibility that Mr. Vane is the biological father. Daniel opened his eyes and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, but something like relief mixed with profound sadness. I want her last name changed immediately, he said quietly, and I want all parental rights and responsibilities terminated. Daniel, please, I begged. You've been her father for 6 months. You love her. I love the daughter I thought was mine. I loved the wife I thought was faithful. But neither of those people existed, did they? Patricia pulled out more documents. Mr. Vane is seeking full dissolution of marriage, return of all gifts and financial support provided during the pregnancy and after birth, and compensation for emotional damages. He's also requesting that you be required to inform Mr. Hart of his paternal status and pursue child support from the biological father. My world was collapsing. I can't. Elliot won't. He doesn't want anything to do with this. That's not Mr. Vane's problem anymore, Patricia said coldly. You created this situation through your deception and infidelity. Now you have to deal with the consequences. The divorce proceedings moved quickly after that. Daniel had been meticulous in documenting everything. My social media posts, the timeline of Elliot's involvement, witness statements from the dinner party, even security footage from our apartment building, showing Elliot's frequent visits. When I tried to contact Elliot about the paternity results, his number had been disconnected. I found out through mutual friends that he'd taken a job in another state and moved without leaving a forwarding address. The man who had claimed to care about me, who had been so eager to be involved in Amelia's life, had disappeared the moment real responsibility appeared. Our mutual friends were no longer mutual. Anna and Zoe had completely cut contact with me, disgusted by the revelation that I'd been lying about the affair. Mike had publicly posted his support for Daniel, calling me a manipulative cheater who destroyed a good man. Even some of my work colleagues had heard about the situation and were treating me differently. The humiliation was complete and public. My mother Janice was devastated. How could you do this to Daniel? To that baby? To yourself? I didn't mean for it to happen. You didn't mean to have an affair. You didn't mean to lie about paternity. You didn't mean to destroy your marriage. I thought Amelia was Daniel's. I really did. But you knew there was a chance she wasn't, didn't you? And you let that man raise her anyway. I couldn't answer because she was right. The final court date was on a cold February morning. Daniel arrived with Linda and Robin, looking composed and dignified. I sat alone with Tom, who had advised me to accept the settlement terms rather than fight them. Judge Martinez reviewed the case with obvious distaste. Mrs. Vane, this court finds that you engaged in deliberate deception regarding the paternity of your child, caused substantial emotional and financial harm to Mr. Vane, and showed a pattern of manipulative behavior designed to avoid responsibility for your actions. She granted Daniel everything he'd asked for: complete dissolution of marriage, financial compensation, and termination of all parental rights and responsibilities regarding Amelia. Furthermore, the judge continued, this court is ordering you to pursue child support from the biological father and to repay Mr. Vane for all expenses related to the child's care during the period of deception. As we left the courthouse, Daniel walked past me without a word. Linda stopped and looked at me with something like pity. I hope it was worth it, she said quietly. Robin, now 11, and old enough to understand what had happened, just shook their head. I thought you were nice, they said. But you're just mean. That hurt more than anything else. I watched Daniel walk away with his family, his head held high, his dignity intact. He had lost a wife and a daughter he'd loved, but he had gained something too. Freedom from my manipulation, validation that his instincts had been correct, and the support of everyone who mattered. I was left standing on the courthouse steps, holding Amelia, completely alone. The friends who had supported my right to have male friends had vanished when they learned the truth. The man I'd risked everything for had abandoned us both. The husband I'd taken for granted was gone forever. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the news about your divorce. Hope you learned something. Mike. I looked down at Amelia, this beautiful little girl who would grow up knowing that her mother's selfishness had cost her the only father she'd ever known. She would know that her biological father had run away rather than face responsibility. She would know that her mother had prioritized attention and validation over family and loyalty. The worst part was that I finally understood what everyone had been trying to tell me. Daniel hadn't been controlling or jealous. He'd been a husband watching his wife have an emotional affair and trying to protect his family. His friends hadn't been taking sides unfairly. They'd been supporting a good man who was being publicly humiliated by his wife. I had been so convinced that I was the victim, so sure that everyone else was wrong, that I'd destroyed the best thing in my life and hurt an innocent man who had loved me unconditionally. As I walked to my car, alone with a baby whose future I'd made infinitely more difficult, I realized that this was what consequences looked like. Not the dramatic confrontations I'd imagined, not the passionate reconciliation I'd secretly hoped for, but this quiet, complete, and permanent loss of everything that had mattered. Daniel had gotten his revenge, but it wasn't vindictive or cruel. It was simply the truth, finally exposed, and justice served through the legal system I'd forced him to use. I had laughed when I joked that our baby could be his friend's copy. He had called a lab instead of accepting my manipulation. And now I understood that he had been right to do so.